So now let's talk about the second feast of the Lord. It's called unleavened bread. Exodus chapter 34, verse 23. Thrice in a year shall all your men appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. This was one of the 3 feasts that all males were required to attend. The other 2 was Pentecost and the Feast of Tabernacles. Leviticus 23:6. And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Folks, this spoke of Christ being buried. Think of it this way. Passover was Christ being crucified, but now think of unleavened bread as Christ being buried. This is the second feast that takes place after the day of Passover. This feast lasts for 7 days. This feast speaks of God's deliverance that would happen in the middle of the night. There was no time for the dough to rise, so the feast reminds the children of Israel that when the Lord delivers, it is sometimes very sudden. This feast reminds the children of Israel that they came out in haste. Exodus 12:39. So this feast begins on the 15th day of Nisan. The first day was a holy day in which no work was to be done, meaning a Sabbath. And then 7 days later, on the 21st, again, a holy day in which no work was done. This feast required special sacrifices every day. The key to this feast was there was to be no leaven. All eating of anything leavened was forbidden during this feast. Not only that, there was not even supposed to be even a trace of leaven in their homes. Exodus chapter 12 verse 15 says, 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread, even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Remember, leaven is what we would consider yeast today. Some other references is Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 3, Exodus chapter 12 verses 15 through 20, and also verse 39. But there are some preparations for this feast that I want to bring out. For weeks before this feast even occurred, each household would wash walls, floors, cooking utensils, and many other special cleanings to ensure there was not even a trace of leaven in their home. Then the night before, the father did a special ceremony. He went to look for leaven. Armed with a spoon and a goose feather, the father would search for leaven. The mother earlier would purposely leave bits of leaven in the corners and other spots easy to find in the house. The children would watch the father look for leaven. After all, the leaven was found, the father would take the leaven, the spoon, and the feather, and put it in a bag or wrapped it in a cloth. This was to be burned the next morning. But what does all this mean? Well, in the Bible, leaven is a type of sin. And notice the importance that there would be a feast in which we would focus on getting rid of sin. And we need to get rid of sin in our lives. Galatians 5:9. Since leaven pictures sin, only unleavened bread was used in the temple. This unleavened bread was bruised, stripped, and pierced, which is exactly what Jesus was like when he went through his crucifixion and his mocking and his beating, because he would become the unleavened bread of sacrifice. See Isaiah chapter 53 verses 4 through 10. No offerings were to contain leaven. Jesus is the true bread from heaven, since he is without sin, just as unleavened bread was not to contain any leaven. While Passover spoke of the Messiah as the Lamb of God who was crucified, the Feast of Unleavened Bread speaks of the Messiah being buried. This may not seem that important, but Jesus was pure. And even though he died a criminal's death, he was not buried that way, just as unleavened bread was without contamination. So it was with our Lord. The Messiah fulfilled the Feast of Unleavened Bread by being the sinless or without leaven sacrifice. God did validate that since Jesus' body saw no decay. Acts chapter 2 verse 27. because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither shalt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. The Apostle Paul spoke of this feast in his letter to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 5:7. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. In verse 8 it says, Therefore, let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Just as the children of Israel were to get rid of leaven, no matter how small, so we as believers should get rid of sin in our lives. And going back to the Passover, remember it was the middle matzah, or that unleavened bread that was broken and hidden away. It was, in a sense, buried. And that's how it relates to the feast of unleavened bread. Christ, who was crucified, who was broken, now has been buried. But he's buried, but there's no sin, and thus there's nothing to have any type of contamination that would cause his body to see decay. And that is the end of our study on the Feast of Unleavened Bread.